You're watching South Asia Newsline, and here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Wednesday, the 25th of March. India riding the Reform Express, says Sitharaman as Parliament passes finance bill. Pakistan positions itself as key mediator in US-Iran conflict. And Taliban releases American prisoner amid ongoing diplomatic strain. And now for all the details. India's lower house of parliament, the Lok Sabha, on Wednesday passed the Finance Bill 2026 with 32 government amendments, completing its part of the budget approval process. The bill will now be taken up by the upper house Rajya Sabha. Presenting the government's vision, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said India is riding the Reform Express with reforms driven by conviction, clarity and confidence under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The Union Budget 2026 to 2027 proposes a total expenditure of Rs 53.47 lakh crore, marking a 7.7% increase over the current fiscal. Capital expenditure is pegged at Rs 12.2 lakh crore, while gross tax revenues estimated at Rs 44.04 lakh crore. The fiscal deficit for FY27 is projected at 4.3% of GDP. Sitharaman emphasized a trust-based tax system aimed at easing compliance for honest taxpayers. She said the government is focusing on empowering MSMEs, farmers and cooperatives alongside customs reforms to boost trade, improve liquidity and strengthen India's economic growth.
India is actually moving forward with reform not out of compulsion, which is what has happened earlier. Reform is not happening out of compulsion, but out of conviction, with clarity, confidence and commitment. India is riding on the Reform Express under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi.
Meanwhile, S&P Global Ratings has raised India's GDP growth forecast for FY27 to 7.1%, citing strong domestic demand, resilient consumption, and a gradual recovery in investment. However, it warned that rising geopolitical tensions in West Asia could pose risks. In a report on Wednesday, it said disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz may impact India through higher commodity prices and volatile trade flows. While current disruptions are seen as temporary, a prolonged conflict could reduce growth by up to 0.4% points and push inflation higher. And US Under-Secretary of War for Policy Elbridge Colby said on Tuesday that Washington sees India as an essential partner because of its geography, military capability, strategic autonomy, and growing global influence. Speaking in New Delhi, he said that the US and India share a common interest in maintaining a stable balance of power in the Indo-Pacific, stressing that no single country should dominate the region. He said the US supports India's push for a strong domestic defense industry and wants closer cooperation in areas such as maritime security, logistics, anti-submarine warfare, and advanced technologies. Emphasizing that America has the world's premier defense industrial base, he said India is entering the top ranks of global economies and has enormous promise as an industrial and technological powerhouse. Colby said there is huge scope for co-production and co-development. His comments come a day after US President Donald Trump said there had been productive talks aiming to halt the war unleashed by the US and Israel against Iran and now raging across the Middle East.
Your country sits astride the Indian Ocean, which is the connective tissue of the Indo-Pacific. India possesses a long tradition of strategic autonomy and a growing capacity to shape events well beyond its borders. It is the largest republic in the world. Its success thus carries profound symbolic and political weight, and has formidable, self-reliant, and capable military forces, willing and able to shoulder significant security responsibilities. For all of these reasons, the United States sees India not merely as a key partner, but as an essential one in ensuring a long-term, favorable balance of power in Asia.
And Pakistan is positioning itself as a potential peacemaker in the ongoing conflict involving US, Israel and Iran. Officials say Islamabad could host talks aimed at ending the war, a move that would significantly elevate Pakistan's global standing. Pakistan's diplomatic push comes after months of engagement with US President Donald Trump, including high-level meetings and economic cooperation initiatives. At the same time, Islamabad has preserved long-standing ties with Iran, positioning itself as a neutral actor in the crisis. Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir has worked to rebuild trust with Washington, while Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and senior officials have held dozens of calls with leaders across the Middle East. Possible talks in Islamabad could include senior US officials, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Envoy Steve Witkoff. The country shares a border with Iran and fears the conflict could spill over, particularly in the Balochistan region. And people in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit Baltistan say they are being crushed under inflation, with Islamabad's policies worsening their daily struggle and little relief from the authorities. A report.
Inflation is hitting people hard in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit Baltistan. A steep hike in fuel prices has led to a surge in transport fares, making daily life even more difficult, with a cascading impact on prices of essential commodities. Locals allege that Pakistan continues to impose economic burdens without considering ground realities in the already marginalized region.
टैक्स लगना ही नहीं चाहिए, ये डिस्प्यूटेड एरिया है, ठीक है। यहाँ पे तो टैक्स लगने का कोई जवाब ही नहीं बनता है। ऑलरेडी हमसे टैक्स लिया जा रहा था, इसके ऊपर एक और टैक्स लगा दिया गया, तो इसका मतलब ये है कि गरीबों को जिंदा दफन करने वाली बात। ये तो आप खुद समझते हैं कि अगर टैक्स लगेगा तो वो डायरेक्ट दुकानदारों पे नहीं लगता है, दुकानदारों पे कोई फर्क पड़ना ही नहीं। असल में इसके असरात गरीबों पे मुरतब होंगे। दुकानदारों पे टैक्स लगेगा तो सामान यकीनी बात है महंगी होंगी, और जब सामान महंगी होंगी तो फिर वही बात है, गरीब ही पिसेगा।
Residents say Pakistan has failed to control inflation and instead continues to extract revenue from the region, further deepening the economic distress of ordinary people.
यहाँ खाने पीने की अशिया से लेके पहनने के कपड़ों तक की कीमतें भी आसमान पे पहुंच चुकी है। इस वक्त गरीब आदमी 2 वक्त की रोटी के लिए दर बदर की ठोकरें खा रहा है, और यहाँ के लोग जो है अपने बच्चों को नए कपड़े खरीदने से बिल्कुल कासिर हैं। तो हुकूमत को चाहिए कि यहाँ कुछ जो है यहाँ पे खुद सकता, और यहाँ पे महंगाई बढ़ाई जा रही है, तो इन ज़िली इंतजामिया को भी चाहिए कि ऐसे अनासर पे नज़र रखे, और यहाँ पे जो ज़ख़ीरा अंदोज़ है उन पे भी नज़र रखे, और आवाम को रिलीफ देने की कोशिश करें।
Locals allege that decisions are imposed on the occupied region without consultation, while dissent is often suppressed, leaving the common people to bear the brunt of rising costs and what they describe as continued economic exploitation by Pakistan.
And Afghanistan's de facto Taliban government announced on Tuesday that it had freed US citizen Dennis Coyle following a humanitarian appeal from his mother ahead of the Islamic festival of al-Fitr. According to a statement from the Taliban's foreign ministry, Afghanistan's Supreme Court ruled that Coyle had served a sufficient period in detention and approved his release. Despite the release, the US says the action is not enough to change its stance on Afghanistan. Earlier this month, Washington formally designated the Taliban-led government as a state sponsor of wrongful detention, citing the continued holding of American citizens. US officials have warned that further steps could follow, including potential travel restrictions barring Americans from visiting Afghanistan. The designation was announced by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who called on the Taliban to release all detained US citizens, including Mahmoud Habibi and Dennis Coyle. The Taliban had criticized the move as regrettable and says it prefers to resolve the issue through dialogue. And with the onset of spring season and the clearance of snow, tourists have started to visit the Sanasar Valley in Ramban area of India's Jammu and Kashmir. The valley is drawing visitors eager to enjoy its natural beauty. Tourists are particularly attracted to the vast green meadows, cool breeze scented with deodar trees, and the serene lake at the center of the valley, surrounded by the snow-clad mountains. The largest tulip garden in the Jammu region, located near the lake, has also become a major attraction this season. Children and families were seen enjoying various activities including boating, horse riding, zipline rides, water zorbing, and feeding fish in the lake. Locals dependent on tourism are hopeful of a strong season this year, as tourism suffered a severe setback due to the Pahalgam terrorist attack last April and later heavy damage caused by landslides triggered by cloudbursts and continuous rains.
और ये बहुत ही प्यारा लेक है, बहुत ही अच्छा व्यू है और जैसे कि अभी स्प्रिंग सीज़न चल रहा है तो अभी धीरे धीरे थोड़ा रश बढ़ रहा है यहाँ पे। और यहाँ पे बहुत ही प्यारा गार्डन है देखने के लिए, ट्यूलिप गार्डन, जो कि जैसे श्रीनगर में है कश्मीर में, वो हम यहाँ पे भी इंजॉय कर सकते हैं। बहुत अच्छे अच्छे फ्लावर्स लगे हुए हैं उसमें। और यहाँ पे गेम्स भी है काफ़ी बच्चों के लिए, बच्चों के इंजॉय करने के लिए और खेलने के लिए। बच्चे भी काफ़ी इंजॉय करते हैं यहाँ पे।
That's all in tonight's edition. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Good night.